Imagine, you're just 20 years old, your father has just been murdered, and you're suddenly the king of a divided, chaotic kingdom. Most people would panic. Most would fail. Most would be forgotten by history. But Alexander was different. In just 13 years, this young man would conquer more land than any human in history. He would never lose a single battle. He would be worshipped as a god, and he would die at 32, leaving behind the greatest mystery of the ancient world. This is the true story of Alexander the Great. Our story begins in 356 BC, in the kingdom of Macedon, a rough, mountainous land in northern Greece. On a stormy summer night, a child was born to King Philip II, and they named him Alexander. But this was no ordinary birth. Legend says that on the same night Alexander was born, the temple of Artemis, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, burned to the ground. The priests whispered, "A force has been born that will destroy Asia." Alexander's father, Philip, was a brilliant military leader, a ruthless conqueror, and a terrible parent. Philip wanted his son to be perfect, so he hired the greatest mind in the ancient world, Aristotle, to be Alexander's teacher. For 3 years, in a quiet garden called Mysa, Aristotle taught young Alexander everything: philosophy, science, medicine and geography, and the stories of heroes. Alexander's favorite book was the Iliad, the epic tale of Achilles, the greatest warrior who ever lived. He slept with a copy under his pillow, dreaming of glory, dreaming of immortality. But knowledge alone wouldn't make Alexander great. He needed to prove himself. At age 12, something incredible happened. A wild horse, massive, black, and completely untamable, was brought to Philip's court. Traders wanted 13 talents for it, an enormous sum, but no one could ride the beast. Philip ordered the horse taken away, but young Alexander spoke up. What a horse they are losing, because they don't have the skill or courage to handle him. Philip laughed. You think you can do better than grown men? Alexander looked his father in the eye. I do. And if you fail, I'll pay for the horse myself. Everyone watched, some laughing, some curious. Alexander approached the wild animal slowly. He noticed something others had missed. The horse was afraid of its own shadow. He turned the horse toward the sun, so it couldn't see its shadow, whispered calming words, and then he mounted it. The crowd erupted in cheers. Philip, with tears in his eyes, said to his son, "My boy, you must find a kingdom big enough for your ambitions. Macedon is too small for you." Those words would prove prophetic. Years passed. Alexander fought in his father's armies, led cavalry charges at 18, proved himself a brilliant commander. But Philip grew distant. He took a new wife, a young Macedonian woman, which insulted Alexander's mother, Olympias. At Philip's wedding feast, tensions exploded. Philip's new father-in-law stood up and prayed, "May the gods grant Philip a legitimate heir to the throne." The insult was clear. Alexander, son of a foreign mother, was being called illegitimate. Drunk and furious, Alexander threw his cup at the man. "Am I a bastard then?" Philip, also drunk, drew his sword and charged at his own son, but stumbled and fell. Alexander looked down at his father and said coldly, "Here is the man who would cross from Europe to Asia, and he can't even cross from couch to couch." Alexander and his mother fled into exile, but fate had other plans. In 336 BC, during a grand celebration, King Philip II walked into the theater. A bodyguard, a man named Pausanias, approached him and drove a dagger into Philip's chest. The king of Macedon, the man who had united Greece, was dead, and 20-year-old Alexander was now king. But his kingdom was chaos, rebellions everywhere, enemies circling, nobles plotting against him. Most thought this boy king would fall within months. They were wrong. Alexander moved with terrifying speed. First, he executed everyone involved in his father's murder. Then he marched his army south into Greece. The Greek city-states thought about rebelling, but when they saw Alexander's army at their gates, they submitted. All except one city, Thebes. Thebes, one of Greece's greatest cities, declared independence. They thought Alexander was too young, too weak to respond. They were catastrophically wrong. Alexander's army surrounded Thebes, and he gave them one chance to surrender. They refused. What happened next shocked the ancient world. Alexander's forces broke through the walls and destroyed the entire city. 6,000 Thebans were killed. 30,000 were sold into slavery. The city was burned to the ground. Only one building was left standing, the House of Pindar, Greece's greatest poet, because Alexander respected art and culture. The message was clear: submit or be destroyed. Greece submitted. Now, Alexander turned his eyes east, toward the Persian Empire, the largest empire in the world, ruled by King Darius III. Persia controlled 2 million square miles, from Egypt to India, with an army of over 250,000 soldiers. Alexander had 40,000 men. Everyone told him it was suicide, but Alexander didn't care. In 334 BC, at age 22, Alexander crossed the Hellespont, the narrow strait between Europe and Asia. According to legend, as his ship approached the Asian shore, Alexander threw his spear into the sand, claiming all of Asia as won by the spear. The invasion had begun. The first major battle came at the Granicus River. Persian forces waited on the opposite bank, cavalry ready, arrows nocked. Alexander's generals begged him, "Wait until tomorrow, cross at dawn when they're unprepared." But Alexander refused. "If the Hellespont didn't stop me, this little river won't either." He personally led the cavalry charge. Into the river, arrows raining down, swords clashing. Alexander's helmet was split by a Persian axe. He was nearly killed, but his companion Clitus saved his life. The Persians broke and fled. Alexander had won his first battle in Asia. City after city fell: Sardis, Ephesus, Miletus. But the real test came at Issus in 333 BC. King Darius himself led a massive Persian army, perhaps 100,000 strong, against Alexander's 40,000. The battlefield was narrow, trapped between mountains and sea, perfect for Alexander's smaller, disciplined force. As both armies faced each other, Darius sat in a golden chariot, surrounded by his elite immortals. Alexander rode at the front on his beloved horse Bucephalus, the same horse he had tamed as a child. The battle began. Alexander spotted a weakness in the Persian center, and he did something insane. He personally led a cavalry charge directly at Darius, straight through the enemy lines. Darius, seeing this demon in armor charging straight for him, panicked and fled. When a king runs, his army collapses. The Persians scattered, thousands were slaughtered. Darius abandoned his family, his treasure, everything. Alexander captured Darius's mother, wife, and daughters, but treated them with respect, like royalty. The Persian queen mother later said, "Alexander is more of a king than Darius ever was." After Issus, Alexander moved south into Phoenicia, then Egypt. In Egypt, something extraordinary happened. The Egyptians, who hated their Persian overlords, welcomed Alexander as a liberator, as a god. The priests of Ammonius declared Alexander the son of Zeus, a living deity. Some say Alexander believed it, Others say he used it for propaganda, but either way, his legend grew. He founded a city in Egypt, Alexandria, which would become one of the greatest cities in human history. But before Egypt, there was the Gordian knot. In the city of Gordium, there was an ancient knot tied by King Midas himself. Legend said whoever untied it would rule all of Asia. Hundreds had tried, all failed. Alexander examined the knot, twisted and impossibly complex. Then he drew his sword and cut it in half. "It doesn't matter how the knot is undone," he said. That was Alexander. If the old rules didn't work, he made new ones. By 331 BC, Darius had rebuilt his army. This time, over 250,000 men, with 200 side chariots, designed to cut through infantry. The battlefield was Gaugamela, a plain in modern-day Iraq. Darius chose flat ground, perfect for his numbers advantage. Alexander had 47,000 men. Before the battle, Alexander's general Parmenion suggested a night attack. Alexander refused. "I will not steal victory." The night before battle, Alexander slept peacefully, while his men paced nervously. When dawn came, the Persians saw something terrifying. Alexander's army, in perfect formation, advancing like a machine. Darius sent his side chariots, designed to cause chaos. But Alexander's men opened gaps in the formation, let the chariots pass through harmlessly, then closed ranks again. Alexander saw it, a gap in the Persian line. He formed his companion cavalry into a wedge and charged directly at Darius again. It was insane, it was brilliant, it was Alexander. Darius, once again, fled the battlefield. The Persian Empire, the greatest empire on earth, was finished. Alexander was now Lord of Asia. But Alexander didn't stop. He chased Darius, but before he could catch him, Darius was murdered by his own men. Alexander gave Darius a royal burial and executed the traitors. Then he kept marching into Central Asia, into Afghanistan, into the mountains and deserts. His men were exhausted, but Alexander pushed on. In 327 BC, he crossed into India and faced King Porus, who had 200 war elephants. At the Battle of Hydaspes, Alexander faced these elephants, these living tanks, and still won. But his men had had enough. At the Hyphasis River, his army refused to march further. For the first time in his life, Alexander couldn't convince them. Furious, heartbroken, he agreed to turn back. But he didn't go home. He marched through the Gedrosian Desert, one of the harshest places on earth, losing thousands of men. What? Some say pride, some say madness, some say he wanted to prove he could conquer even nature itself. By 323 BC, Alexander was back in Babylon, planning new conquests. Arabia, Rome, the whole world. He was 32 years old, undefeated, immortal. Then, at a banquet, he drank a cup of wine and suddenly felt a sharp pain. Within days, he was burning with fever, unable to move, dying. His men asked, "Who will inherit your empire?" Alexander whispered, "The strongest." On June 10, 323 BC, Alexander the Great died. But how? Poison? Malaria? Typhoid? Murder? Divine punishment? Nobody knows. His body was preserved in honey, his empire split between his generals, and his legend became eternal. In just 13 years, Alexander conquered 2 million square miles, founded 20 cities, never lost a battle, and changed human history forever. He proved that one person, with vision, with courage, with relentless will, could reshape the world. Some called him a genius, some a tyrant, some a god, but everyone remembered his name. And even today, 2,300 years later, we still ask, what could Alexander have accomplished if he had lived?